Back-to-back shutouts doesn't just mean the Bruins are winning. It means their entire identity just snapped back into place, and it starts right in the crease.
You're Locked On Bruins, your daily podcast on the Boston Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Bruins fans, and welcome back to the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast. We are part of the Locked On Sports Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. I'm your host, Ian McLaren. I am a lifelong Boston Bruins fan, and I have been covering this team and the NHL for various major outlets for nearly 20 years. On today's episode, we are going to break down last night's shutout victory over the Detroit Red Wings. It's the Bruins' second straight shutout win. They've now won 4 games in a row and in pretty dominant fashion over the course of this homestand. We'll break down all the storylines, the stats, and the significance of last night's win and this streak. And we will also quickly start to look ahead to tomorrow's big game against the Seattle Kraken, which will feature Zdeno Chara's jersey retirement beforehand. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The wildcard round is over. FanDuel is officially in playoff mode, so visit FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day. Let's get right into it, shall we? The Boston Bruins, winners of 4 straight games and 2 straight shutouts. And since they lost to the Seattle Kraken, tomorrow night's opponent, last Tuesday out west, they've come home and really done a big reset. They've won 4 games in a row. They've outscored the opposition 17-3. And Joonas Korpisalo, Jeremy Swayman combining for 2 back-to-back shutouts. The first 2 shutouts of the season for the Boston Bruins. And it's reminiscent of the trading starts, elite quality starts, back-to-back that we used to see with Jeremy Swayman and Linus Ullmark. Not to say that Joonas Korpisalo is all the way back, but look, he stepped up. He won the first game of this homestand, beating the Calgary Flames. Then Swayman came in for the 10-2 game against the Rangers. The next day, Korpisalo backs up his previous quality start with the Bruins' first shutout of the season against the Pittsburgh Penguins. And then you had Jeremy Swayman seeing what Korpisalo did on Sunday and deciding that he wanted to do the same. So there are split in starts over the past 4 games, and Swayman afterwards said, Corpy got it done last game. He's just the best. We got the monkey off our back in terms of getting the Bruins' first shutout of the season, and Swayman jokingly said he's got to keep up with him. Awesome that they have that high competitiveness together. And again, shutouts aren't done without the boys in front of us, so huge credit goes to them for getting the job done tonight. Along those lines, Marco Sturm said he thought it was one of the most complete games the Bruins had played all year long, especially 5-on-5. Those are the games we have to take advantage of a little bit, he said. Guys were just ready to go right from the start. They got up for a big game against one of the division-leading teams in the Detroit Red Wings. It was great to see Korpisalo and Swayman with the goalie hug after this one. Look, going back to last year, you had Jeremy Swayman, who was really struggling in net. You had Joonas Korpisalo after the season coming out and saying that he wanted to play more games. He thought his play warranted more starts than he got. Back-to-back shutouts don't just happen by accident. They happen because the Bruins have kind of fixed some self-inflicted problems, right? They're taking less penalties. They're being more responsible defensively, and this team cannot win without high-level goaltending. And for the first time in weeks, Marco Sturm looks like he can trust both guys again. I discussed extensively on the podcast yesterday. Everydayers will remember that we looked at actual goals for the Bruins versus expected goals. And there is a huge difference between what has actually transpired on the ice for this team, a positive goal differential, with a very negative expected goal differential, like ranked 29th in the NHL. And what's keeping this team afloat right now, partly, in big part, is the goaltending. And again, it's reminiscent of that tandem with Ullmark and Swayman. Look, people used to say it doesn't matter who's in net for the Bruins because their defense is so strong. That's not been the case over the last few years. This has been a near bottom of the NHL team in terms of those defensive metrics. Shot attempt differential, shot differential, scoring chances, high danger chances. But when you have two goalies who can come in, pitch shutouts on back-to-back nights, that's a huge bonus. And last night, at least, the underlying numbers and the eye test finally matched. The Bruins played one of their better games overall in terms of not only the shots for and against, goals for and against, but those underlying numbers. The Bruins are plus over their last 7 games. They have the best goal differential in the NHL over that span. A lot of that is due to the lopsided game against the Rangers where they went +8 in one game. But the Bruins had the advantage last night in shot attempts and scoring chances. It wasn't just the goaltending that was bailing them out. They were controlling the play. Detroit never really tilted the ice. The Bruins weren't chasing it. And this wasn't power play driven or score effects. It was one of the first times we've seen Sturm's structural vision show up. And it's been doing that consistently over the last little bit. Breakouts, tracking, reloads, all of it. This win looked exactly like the Bruins want to win games. Being a good to great defensive team, that's one of the things from the start of the season the Bruins have tried to pride themselves on, according to Pavel Zacha. And the penalty kill has looked a bit better, and the Bruins 5-on-5 game has looked better because they have been staying out of the box over the last little bit. That's been a huge problem for this team, league leading penalty team. And when you're not taking those penalties, it helps the 5-on-5 play because you're getting your non-penalty killers out there more regularly, and it doesn't overtax those penalty killers when they are on the ice. And it's not a top-heavy surge either. It's not just coming from the goaltenders. It's coming from up and down the lineup. Morgan Geekie is mired in a pretty lengthy goal drought here. I believe it's now up to 8-9 games. He did miss a game and 2/3 of another over the weekend because we've now learned he had his wife gave birth over the weekend. Congrats to the Geekie family. But he's not really scoring that much right now. Other guys are really stepping up. Pavel Zacha's got 4 goals in 3 games. Fraser MintEn scored last night, his 4th point in 3 games. He's got like 5 goals over his last 5-6 games. Mason Lohrei was directly involved in the opening goal with a very smart pinch that got the puck to Pavel Zacha eventually. Fraser MintEn, Victor Arvidsson, Marat Husnudinov, each contributing. Victor Arvidsson had like 10 shots on goal last night in only about 13 and a bit minutes of ice time. That's a shot a minute almost. He didn't get on the scoreboard, but that's the kind of contributions that he's making. Pastrnak is on fire right now. He's putting up a ton of points, 15 points over his last 7 games, but the secondary scoring is showing up. Young players are producing inside the system, and that's kind of the difference between surviving and sustaining. Again, only 2 penalties per game over the last 4. The Bruins have been taking like 5, 6 per game prior to that. And you're not giving the opposition opportunities to kill your momentum or take over the game by taking those penalties. The Bruins dictated this game flow wire to wire, and you can't really work on your 5-on-5 game if you're constantly killing penalties. And the Bruins hopefully have seemed to figure that out. So those are some of the big storylines from last night's game against Detroit. They've now won 4 in a row. And we'll take a look at some more stats and the significance of last night's loss here as the podcast continues. New year, new systems for the Boston Bruins, but this is also the time when a lot of us look at the messier parts of how we run our businesses, and we think there's got to be a better way. And there actually is. Streamlining your communications is one of the quickest upgrades you can make, and that's why today's episode is brought to you by Quo, spelled Quo, the smarter way to run your business communications. Because when your team is reachable, organized, and communicating in one place, you're not just working cleaner, you're creating more opportunities to connect with customers. Your whole team can call and text from one shared business number, so nothing gets missed, and it works right from your phone or computer, so you can keep even your existing number. It's no surprise that Quo is the number 1 rated business phone system on G2, trusted by more than 90,000 businesses, from solo operations to growing teams. Make this the year where no opportunity and no customer slips away. Try Quo for free, plus get 20% off your first 6 months when you go to quo.com/lockedonnhl. That's quo.com/lockedonnhl. Thank you so much again for making Locked On Boston Bruins your first listen every day. And thank you for making Locked On the number 1 sports podcast network. If you haven't done so already, please go check out our new Everydayer Club. You get access to an ad-free audio feed for Locked On Bruins, compatible with Apple, Spotify, other major podcast apps. I use Pocket Casts myself. You get an invite to the members-only Locked On Everydayer Club Discord server, which includes a group chat just for listeners of this show. Go to lockedonbruins.supercast.com or tap the link in the show notes to learn more. Like I said, this was not a smoke and mirrors win for the Boston Bruins. They were pretty dominant 5-on-5 and in all situations. They had 56% of the shot attempts at 5-on-5, 62.5% of the shots. Scoring chances, they had 60% of them, and high danger chances, 55. In all situations, the numbers were even better for the Bruins, with a 56.3% expected goal share, 3.88 versus 3.01 for the Red Wings. The Red Wings had some opportunities, 27 scoring chances, 10 high danger chances, but the Bruins tilted the ice. It was 41-24, the shots in favor of the Bruins. High danger chances, 13-10, 38-27, the scoring chance differential. And in the end, the Boston Bruins came out with the 3-0 win because Jeremy Swayman was just that much better than Cam Talbot at the other end of the ice. Now, can't stress enough how much Pavel Zacha has helped this team over the last little bit. He has been just fantastic over the past 6-7 games. The Bruins are 6-1 over their past 7 games, and Pavel Zacha has been excellent over that stretch. He, of course, had his first career hat trick just a couple games ago. And he has, over those last 6 games, he's got 6 points. Goal last night, he had 3 goals back in the game against the Rangers. He's chipped in a couple assists. And the second line of Casey Middlestat, Victor Arvidsson, and Zacha has really gelled into a pretty competent second unit, to say the least. And that secondary scoring, along with the emergence of Fraser MintEn on the third line, who was playing with Morgan Geekie as well. He scored again, MintEn did, extending the lead to 2-0. And that kind of up and down the lineup scoring is really, really impressive for the Bruins right now. Not to be outdone, of course, the superstar on this team, David Pastrnak, recorded an assist on Fraser MintEn's goal, surpassing Bobby Orr for 7th most points in Bruins history. That's the biggest stat you need to know from last night. And David Pastrnak, his coach, said that he is a special player. Sturm added, quote, "The stuff he does on the ice every game is pretty amazing. Not too many guys can do that. Just a matter of time, but catching a guy like Orr is pretty cool." The nice part about David is he's not done yet here in Boston, so we're going to talk about him for a while. He's a treat out there with the stuff he does, and it's pretty cool to watch every day, end quote. And there's really a case to be made here for David Pastrnak to become the Bruins' all-time leading scorer when it's all said and done. If he continues producing like he has, he's under contract for, the foreseeable future, and he is slowly but surely rising the ranks of Bruins greats. He's got 889 points. He is 9 points behind Rick Middleton for 6th on the list. Then you have Brad Marchand, who's 5th at 976. Phil Esposito, 1,012 points. Patrice Bergeron, 1,040 points. Then there's a big jump to Johnny Busick, who's got 1,339 points. And Ray Bourque, the franchise leader, with 1,506 points. So Pastrnak still has a ways to go, like 600 points to catch Ray Bourque, but he's still shy of 800 games played. Ray Bourque did it in 1,518 games played, so just under a point per game average, really. 1,518 games played, 1,506 points. Pastrnak has 889 points in 798 games played. So with that longevity, he certainly can and likely will surpass Ray Bourque one day for the team lead in points. Jeremy Swayman, with his 17th career shutout, surpassed Gilles Gilbert for 10th most in franchise history. And those are just some of the key stats you need to know from last night's game against the Detroit Red Wings. The big one for me, again, is only 2 penalties per game over the last 4 games. So the constant revolving door to the penalty box finally slowing down. And that was able to, because of that, they were able to improve their game 5-on-5. Guys like Fraser MintEn, Victor Arvidsson, Murat Husnudinov are really helping things out offensively these days for the Boston Bruins. This is not a one-line team. This is not even a one-player team. You have Pastrnak well in the lead in terms of scoring, 56 points in 42 games, followed by Morgan Geekie, who has not scored now since has it been a month since he scored? Morgan Geekie's last goal came on December 20th. So it's been quite some time here, and he doesn't have a point in 2026 through 5 games here to begin the new year. He only had 2 shots on goal last night. really needs to get going for this team, but thankfully they are being elevated by Pavel Zacha, 32 points in 46 games. Elias Lindholm, 30 points in 37 games. Charlie McAvoy, Victor Arvidsson, Fraser MintEn, Casey Middlestat, Marat Husnudinov, all with 20 points or more. And you're just getting contributions all up and down the lineup. You look at last year's team, there was a 49-point gap between Pastrnak and Geeky. And then you had Lindholm, Zacha with only 47 points each. They're both on pace to eclipse those numbers. McAvoy rebounding well. A lot of guys stepping up, and this is a better team than we saw last year. It's a deeper team, and that's why it's a whole different situation than last year. You could still have a bit of a sell-off. We look at the buyers versus sellers storyline for this team. I still think there should be some selling, but you also have an opportunity to stay competitive, stay in the playoff race, and still get a couple first-round picks. Might not be as high as we had hoped with Toronto surging, the Bruins surging here a bit, and we'll take a look at the standings update and the significance of last night's win here as the podcast continues. It's a new year, we got big goals, and somehow even less time to cook. If you're trying to eat better but don't want to spend hours grocery shopping or meal prepping, Factor makes it easy. These are fully prepared meals designed by dietitians and crafted by chefs so you can eat well without all the work. Factor meals are made with quality, functional ingredients, lean proteins, colorful veggies, whole foods, and healthy fats. And I tried Factor before the holidays. It really helped save time. I have celiac, so I need some gluten-free options. They were all delicious, good for me, and so fresh, ready in about 2 minutes. I honestly made sticking to my goals so much easier because the food was already done for me. Head to factormeals.com/LockedOnNHL50 off and use code LockedOnNHL50 off to get 50% off your first Factor box plus free breakfast for 1 year. That's factormeals.com/LockedOnNHL50 off using code LockedOnNHL50 off. Make healthy eating easy with Factor. Such a good option if you need tasty, healthy, and personalized meals. All right, with the win last night, the Boston Bruins propelled themselves into a playoff spot in terms of points. We always have to look at point percentage, and the Bruins still trailing or outside of the top 8 in the Eastern Conference when it comes to point percentage. They put themselves ahead of the Panthers. They're ahead of the Devils, Senators, Blue Jackets, and Rangers. Technically, they're in a wild card position with 54 points in 47 games. But you have teams like the Sabres who have 52 points, who have 3 games in hand. Same with the Philadelphia Flyers. 52 points. They've played only 44 games. Even the Pittsburgh Penguins, who are at 52 points. The Florida Panthers at 51 points. They have a couple games in hand over our Boston Bruins. So really, right now, if you rank the teams or put them in playoff position by way of point percentage, you have Tampa, who's won 11 games in a row. Just insane. Montreal, Detroit, still as your top 3 teams in the Atlantic. In the Metro, you have Carolina, the Islanders, and the Capitals as your top 3 teams there. And then, actually, Philly has a better point percentage than the Washington Capitals. So you can maybe bump them into the 3rd wildcard spot there. Pittsburgh actually has a better point percentage than Washington as well. The Sabres, Flyers, Penguins, and Maple Leafs all have better point percentages. Thankfully, the Leafs lost last night in Utah, so they're still a point behind the Bruins, but 1 fewer game played. So it's always important to look at point percentage there. The Bruins, it's not just the top 8 teams that make the playoffs, obviously. You have 3 teams from the Metro, 3 from the Atlantic, and then 2 wildcard teams. So right now it's Tampa, Detroit, Montreal, 1, 2, 3 in terms of point percentage. Actually, Tampa, Montreal, Detroit. And then in the Metro, Carolina, the Islanders, Flyers, and then you have the Sabres and Penguins rounding out the top 8 in the Atlantic by way of point percentage, with the Bruins trailing the Capitals and Maple Leafs, who would rank 9th and 10th. But it's super close right now. The Bruins are at 574 point percentage, tied with the Capitals. The Maple Leafs at 576. The Pittsburgh Penguins at 578. So there's very little separation between these teams at the moment. It's a very competitive conference. Only the Rangers are below 500 at 489, and you flip it over to the Western Conference, 489. There's still 4 teams below the Chicago Blackhawks who have that exact same point percentage. The Bruins have a very winnable game coming up tomorrow night against the Seattle Kraken. They'll certainly be looking to erase the sting of that 7-4 loss last week. Their only blemish over the past 7 games here or so. And obviously, it'll be an emotional night with Zdeno Chara being honored prior to puck drop with a jersey retirement ceremony. Now, that could go kind of both ways. It could give you that emotion that you need to get up for this game, or it could kind of get guys cold and they're not able to live up to the moment. But having said that, the way the Bruins are playing right now, you look at how they've performed since the holiday break. Like, they came out, heading into the break, they had lost 4 in a row, including 2 back-to-back losses to Ottawa and Montreal, where they were outscored 12-4, 6-2 in each of those games. They came out of the break, were beaten pretty bad by the Buffalo Sabres, but then they picked up a point in an overtime loss to Calgary. They beat the Edmonton Oilers pretty well on New Year's Eve by a score of 6-2 before last night's game. That was arguably one of their better games this season. And then so far this new year, their only loss has come at the hands of those Seattle Kraken last Tuesday. The Bruins have beaten the Canucks in overtime. They beat the Flames. They beat the Rangers, beat the Penguins, now the Red Wings. And again, over this span, they have outscored the opposition. I said 17-3. It's actually 18-3 over the past 4 games. Yeah, there's some softies in there, some non-playoff teams, but these 2 wins over Pittsburgh and Detroit specifically, teams that are ahead of the Bruins in the standings, those are huge, especially to get them in this fashion, shutting out the opposition, finding your identity, limiting your penalties, owning the puck possession battles. Like, that is massive for the Boston Bruins. And after playing Seattle, they will take on the Chicago Blackhawks on Saturday, one of the poorer teams in the NHL, before heading out west to take on Dallas. Then they'll come home, play Vegas, Montreal, back-to-back against the Rangers and the Predators, 2 very beatable teams. And then they head into the holiday break with a home game against the Flyers before the Stadium Series game against Tampa and a game against the Florida Panthers on February 4th. So it's a pretty good schedule for the Bruins coming up, an opportunity to pick up some points, and we'll break it all down in upcoming episodes of Locked On Boston Bruins. Tomorrow, of course, we'll preview the game against Seattle, do a bit of a Zdeno Chara retrospective, bring you all the latest on the Boston Bruins, because that's what we do here at Locked On Boston Bruins, which is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 podcast network. Make sure you subscribe and follow Locked On Bruins on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube, so you get all the latest episodes. Follow along on TikTok and Instagram for bonus reels, and find us on social at Locked NHL Bruins. And if you never miss an episode already, the Everydayer Club is built specifically for you. Get Locked On Bruins ad-free, plus members-only Discord access, and more. Head to lockedonbruins.supercast.com to join the club. Check out the 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel next to get all the latest from around the world of sports. The NHL Game Night show is available on Locked On NHL feed to get all the latest from around the NHL. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you so much for listening again, friends. Please take care of yourselves, take care of each other. We'll talk to you again here on the next episode of Locked On Boston Bruins.